Our son pushed us off that cliff. And I still remember the sound of the wind screaming in my ears as my husband whispered, "Pretend we're dead." Those words, his trembling voice against the roar of the sea, still echo in my bones. People say when your child betrays you, it feels like dying, but when your own son tries to kill you, death almost feels like mercy. Ibrahim, I never thought I'd tell this story. For months I couldn't. I'd wake up at night drenched in sweat, hearing the crunch of gravel, the desperate gasp before the fall, the thud of my body against the earth that didn't kill me. But silence has a way of rotting the soul, so here I am, an old mother, speaking not to seek pity, but to let truth breathe. Because truth, my dear, doesn't die, even when you're pushed off a cliff. Ibrahim, before that day, my life was quiet, ordinary. My husband, Samuel, and I had spent 42 years together in a small coastal town in Oregon. We were the kind of couple who spoke in glances more than words. He'd old jazz tunes while tending the garden, and I'd knit by the window, pretending not to notice the way he still looked at me when I laughed. Our son, Matthew, used to visit every other weekend with his wife, Vanessa. They lived 2 towns over, successful, busy, always rushing somewhere. Matthew was our pride, our only child, the kind of man who made neighbors say, "You raised him right." A brewer at least. At least. That's what I used to believe. That morning had smelled of rosemary and ocean salt. I was baking bread while Samuel repaired the fence out back. We were planning to visit the lake later, the same lake where Matthew had learned to swim when he was 8. When the phone rang, I wiped my hands on my apron. "Brew for Mom." "Mom," Matthew's voice came through, smooth but oddly distant. "You and Dad free this afternoon? Thought we could take a drive. Maybe visit the cliffs. You haven't been in years. The cliffs. The place where Samuel and I used to picnic when we were newlyweds." How thoughtful of you," I said, smiling. Into the receiver. "We'd love that. If I had known that call was an invitation to die, I would have let it ring." By the time we reached the cliffs, the sun was low, orange light spilling over the horizon like melted copper. Vanessa stood by the car, arms crossed, wearing a look that didn't match the moment. Not a smile, not even politeness. "Beautiful evening," I said softly. She just nodded. "Let's get this over with," she muttered, barely audible. I felt Samuel's hand brush mine, a quiet warning. We'd both noticed the tension. But Matthew's smile, that smile disarmed me. The same smile from his first day of school. "Ibrahim," he led us toward the edge. "Ibrahim, do you remember, Dad? You used to bring me here to watch the whales," he saggled. "You pride. I miss drowning." "Bruh," Matthew laughed, a hollow sound. "Yeah, funny how memory works." "Memory works," said his tone. His tone shifted, subtle but sharp. "Speaking of memory," he said, "you two remember the will you signed last year?" I blinked. "The will?" "Yes," he said casually. "The one where everything goes to me once you're gone." Vanessa looked away. Samuel frowned. "Son, what are you talking about? That's just paperwork, something everyone does." Matthew's jaw tightened. "You think I don't know what you're planning? Bray, what we're planning?" I asked, confused. He turned suddenly, eyes blazing with something I'd never seen before, fear mixed with desperation. "You think I didn't find out you changed it? That you left half to charity? To strangers? Mother, I felt my chest tighten. My heart stuttered. How do you even... He stepped closer. Too close. The wind whipped his hair and his voice cracked like glass. "I worked my whole life to make you proud. And now you're giving away my inheritance after everything I've done?" Samuel took a slow breath. "Matthew, we didn't mean to hurt you. You're our son. But we thought..." "Don't!" he snapped. "Don't call me that right now." The world seemed to tilt. I could taste the salt from the ocean. Low. I reached out, trembling. Matthew, please, whatever this is, let's talk. His eyes softened for a split second. Just a flicker of the boy I'd raised. And then, gone. The next thing I felt was a shove, hard, cold, final. Hey, Burper, I didn't scream. The wind stole the sound before it left my throat. Samuel's hand caught mine mid-fall, his fingers digging into my wrist with desperate strength. Pretend we're dead, he whispered, and then darkness. Giberhi. I woke hours later, the smell of wet earth filling my nose. My body ached, ribs throbbing, head spinning. Samuel lay beside me, breathing, alive. Somehow the rocks below had caught us in their mercy, stopping the fall. The moon hung pale and distant, like it couldn't bear to look at us. Geber, don't move, Samuel murmured. He might still be up there, and for a long while we didn't. We just lay there, two old bodies bruised and broken, pretending to be corpses while the ocean whispered secrets only the dead should hear. The night felt endless, a thick black. Silence broken only by the crash of waves and Samuel's ragged breathing. I could taste iron in my mouth. My arms were scraped raw, my ankle twisted, but pain meant one thing. I was still alive. Samuel moved first, groaning as he pushed himself upright. We need to get off these rocks before the tide rises. The cliffs loomed above us like a wall between life and death. I looked up and imagined Matthew standing there, looking down, waiting to see if we'd float or sink. My heart clenched at the thought that our own son might have been hoping to see us swallowed by the sea. Samuel reached for my hand, his grip still firm, steady, the same grip that had held me through births, funerals, arguments, and laughter. We'll survive this, he said quietly. But no one can know, not yet. We crawled along the shoreline, keeping to the shadows until we reached a cluster of jagged boulders where driftwood had piled up like bones. There we stayed until the first gray light of dawn seeped through teach. Mist. I brew. My mind raced through memories. The first time I held Matthew, his first steps, his graduation, his wedding. Every moment felt tainted now, colored by something dark I hadn't seen coming. What did we do wrong? I whispered. Samuel didn't answer. He was staring toward the cliffs. When daylight finally came, we began to move inland, our clothes heavy with salt and fear. My body screamed with each step, but I followed Samuel's lead. We couldn't go home, not yet. If Matthew thought we were dead, that lie might just keep us alive. We found an old fisherman's shack near the inlet, half-rotten, forgotten, but with 4 standing walls. Samuel broke the lock with a rock and helped me inside. There was a cot, a bucket, and a lantern. It smelled of mildew and oil, but to me, it felt like sanctuary. Samuel closed the door behind us. We'll rest here, just for a while. For 2 days, we hid. Kai barely slept. Every time the wind howled, I thought I heard Matthew's voice, or Vanessa's heels. On gravel. I kept replaying that moment at the edge, the push, the disbelief in his eyes. It wasn't just greed, I thought. It couldn't be. My son had been many things, proud, stubborn, impatient, but not evil. There had to be more. On the second night, Samuel sat across from me, his face pale under the lantern's flicker. I've been thinking, he said. He mentioned the will, but how would he know we changed it? We never told him. I frowned, unless someone else did. Vanessa. The name came out of me like a curse. Her coldness that day, her unease, the way she said, let's get this over with. Murray, she knew. She'd known all along. Samuel nodded slowly. She's the one who probably pushed him. I could see it in her eyes. But Matthew still chose to do it, I said bitterly. No one forced him to shove us. Weberry's silence settled between us. Heavy, aching. We stayed there another night, rationing crackers from Samuel's pocket and drinking rainwater that trickled through the roof. My husband, ever the P. Lanner, began to talk about what came next. If he thinks we're dead, he said, he'll move fast. Maybe try to claim the insurance, the house, the money. And when he does, I whispered, we'll know. That was Samuel, steady, 3 steps ahead. Even as my heart shattered, his mind was already rebuilding. 3 days later, we made our move. Tilbury. We walked through the woods until we reached a rural bus stop. I pulled Samuel's hat low over his face and tied a scarf around mine. Every sound made me flinch. When the bus came, I kept my head down and pretended to be asleep the whole ride. We got off 2 towns over, near an old motel. I used a false name. Samuel used cash. The woman at the counter barely looked up. Inside the small, dimly lit room, I stared at the cracked mirror and barely recognized myself. Bruised, hollow-eyed, older. Do you think anyone's looking for us? I asked softly. Samuel sighed. If he reported us missing, it'll be for show, but he won't expect us to turn up alive. Over the next few days, the local news confirmed it. Elderly couple missing near cliffside, possible accident. Matthew's face appeared in an interview clip, his eyes red, his voice trembling. They were everything to me, he said. Please, if anyone finds them. I turned off the TV. My stomach twisted. Samuel muttered, I'll give him that. On the 5th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to understand. While Samuel slept, I slipped out and walked to a nearby library. Using the public computer, I searched our names. The first article hit me like a blow. Son inherits family estate after parents presumed dead. Hadn't even waited 2 weeks. And there it was, his signature on the legal documents, the insurance transfer, the notary stamp. But another name caught my eye, Vanessa Harlow, co-owner. He had added her to everything. That's when I knew. It wasn't just greed. It was manipulation. She had him wrapped so tightly he couldn't tell right from wrong anymore. Still, I refused to believe my son was gone beyond redemption. Some part of me, small and trembling, whispered that maybe he regretted it. Maybe he'd been tricked. When I returned to the motel, Samuel was waiting, eyes sharp. Where were you? I showed him the printed article. He read it in silence. It's time for what? Steady, familiar look. To stop pretending. Pretending we're dead. When Samuel said, it's time, something inside me froze. For days we'd been ghosts, breathing but unseen, dead in the eyes of the world. And now the thought of stepping back into life felt both thrilling and terrifying. Shivas, I whispered. If we show up, they'll think we're delusional, or worse, they'll warn him. Samuel shook his head. Not everyone. There's one person we can trust. It took me a moment to realize who he meant. Detective Clara Evans, the woman who'd handled our neighbor's case years ago. Honest, sharp, the kind of woman who looked through lies like glass. But she's retired, I said. She, exactly, he replied. She doesn't answer to anyone. We left the motel before sunrise. Air was cold and damp, the streets still empty. I kept glancing over my shoulder as if guilt itself might have a face. We reached Clara's small farmhouse by noon. She opened the door halfway, her brow furrowing as she took us in. Mary, she said softly. Good Lord, you're supposed to be Ed? Samuel finished grimly. Not yet. Brahand trembled as she ushered us inside. The house smelled of coffee and lavender polish. I remember that smell even now. It was the first comfort I'd felt in days. We told her everything. From Matthew's strange invitation to the cliffside betrayal, every word came out slow, shaky, raw. By the end, her eyes were glossy, but her face was steel. "Bambrai, do you have proof?" "Proof?" she asked. Abri hesitated. "Only our word." Abba. She exhaled. "You will need more than that. Ibraka, over the next few days." Clara became our lifeline. She contacted an old friend at the county office, quietly pulling records, insurance claims, title deeds, witness statements, and what she found made my stomach churn. 2 days after our accident, Matthew and Vanessa filed a claim for both life insurance policies. A week later, they signed over our home to a private investor. The money trail led straight to a new joint account under their names. "He didn't waste a second," Samuel muttered, rubbing his temples. "Rubber, Kebro," Clara slid the documents across the table. "There's more. Vanessa's maiden name? Not real. She's been married before, twice. Both husbands ended up with emptied accounts before she disappeared. Burr." I felt the room tilt. "So she's done this before." Clara nodded grimly. "She's clever. She uses charm and panic like weapons, but this time we can use her own greed against her." For the first time in days, Samuel's eyes lit with something fierce, not rage but resolve. "We let them think they've won," he said. "We'll gather everything quietly. When it's time, we won't just tell the world, we'll show them." Clara agreed. "You'll need to stay hidden. If they know you're alive, they'll vanish before we can build a case." And so the strange double life began. By day, Samuel and I stayed in Clara's spare room, quiet, cautious, blending into the background like old shadows. By night, Clara showed us how to dig. Digital trails, emails, phone logs. It felt strange being two old souls hunched over a laptop, learning to outsmart our own child, but pain can sharpen even the gentlest hearts. One night, while Samuel slept, I found a video message on Vanessa's social media, a clip from their memorial gathering. She stood beside Matthew, both dressed in black. Her voice was thick with tears as she said, "They were like parents to me. I'll honor them every day." Abri, but behind the soft music and white flowers, her smile flickered. I knew that look. Not grief, triumph. Ibrahim Matthew looked hollow. Not proud, no. Cruel, just empty. His eyes darted around, restless, haunted. "Berkey." I paused the video and stared at his face. "My son. My boy." "What happened to you?" I whispered to the screen. Ibrahim, the tears came then quietly. Not for my pain, but for the boy I'd raised, the boy who used to bring me wildflowers from the yard and whisper, "For you, Mom, I didn't know if I wanted revenge anymore. Ibr, I just wanted to understand." Clara soon uncovered another piece, a private message Vanessa had sent to the insurance broker. It read, "Ibraki, process quickly. They won't be around long enough to contest anything. Burra." That line changed everything. Broa. It wasn't Matthew's words. It was hers. She planned it, Clara said, and she made him believe it was his idea. Samuel slammed his fist against the table. "Enough. We're going to the police." Spedit. But Clara stopped him. "Not yet. Without clear proof, they'll spin it as confusion or trauma. You'll look unstable." She was right. If we appeared too soon, we'd lose our chance to expose them completely. So we waited, we watched, we gathered. Each day stretched thin with tension, part fear, part purpose. Samuel grew quieter, focused. I, on the other hand, felt myself unraveling in slow motion. I'd catch myself staring at the window, imagining Matthew as a child again, his small hand gripping mine, his laughter echoing through the garden. And then I'd see him at the cliff, his eyes cold and strange. That fracture between the two versions of him haunted me. A week later, Clara came in holding her phone, her expression grave. "You both need to see this," she said. She played a recording, a voicemail Vanessa had accidentally left on her broker's number. "Once it's finalized, we'll leave the country. Matthew's hesitant, but I'll convince him. He'll do whatever I say." Her voice dripped with control, calculation. "Hey, Bruce." Samuel leaned back. Samuel leaned back, eyes blazing. "That's it. That's our proof." "Bro." Clara nodded. "It's enough to open an investigation, but we'll need to plan your reappearance carefully. You can't just walk into the station. If the media catches wind too early, they'll run. Then we make it dramatic," Samuel said quietly. "Let's make the world watch the truth unfold, the way they watched our funeral." I didn't know what he meant at the time, but the calm fire in his voice told me he already had something in mind. And that night, under the thin light of Clara's old lamp, Samuel and I began to plan the moment we'd stop being ghosts and start being justice. Our funeral was set for Sunday. Vanessa had arranged it herself, a lavish event at St. Michael's Church. White lilies, soft piano music, framed portraits of Samuel and me smiling like we were at peace. But peace was the last thing in my heart that morning. Clara sat across from us at the small breakfast table, spreading a map of the church layout. Her voice was low, careful, precise. "You'll arrive after the eulogy. Cameras will already be rolling. Once you step in, no one can silence the truth." Bruh. Samuel nodded. "And our S. On. He'll be there. He'll be there. Vanessa made sure of it. She wants sympathy and the press, Berkpri." I took a shaky breath. "Then let the world see what sympathy looks like. When it meets justice." When the church bells rang that afternoon, I felt my pulse echo in my ears. Clara parked a block away, and we waited in the car until the ceremony began. Through the open window, we could hear the priest's voice, steady and mournful. He spoke about love, about loss, about family, words that felt like broken glass against my chest. Then Vanessa's voice rose, trembling beautifully. "They were my parents in every way that mattered. I'll never forget their kindness." "Norris," the audience murmured, softly, touched, moved. But I saw her face through the side window. Ein Bordeaux. Oh, no tears, no tremor, just control. Ibra. Then Matthew stepped to the podium. Ibra. He looked older, worn, eyes hollow. His voice cracked as he said, "They taught me everything good I know. I only hope they can forgive me for not saving them." Something inside me shifted. Ibra. Foe. The first time I saw not the son who betrayed us, but the man trapped in his own lie. "Now," Clara whispered. We stepped out of the car. Abru. The air felt electric, like the world held its breath. Abru. The church doors creaked open. Gasps rippled through the room. Abru. At first I thought the sound came from me, but no, it was them, the guests, the neighbors, the cameras. Abru. 'Cause Samuel and I walked down that aisle alive. Every head turned. The priest dropped his Bible. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth, her face draining of color. Matthew froze mid-sentence, his eyes wide with something between disbelief and terror. Yibrka stopped halfway down the aisle. "You wanted a memorial," I said softly, my voice carrying across the silence. "So here we are." The room buzzed, whispers, gasps, the click of cameras. Hebrew. Vanessa stammered. This is insane. Imposters. They're Kibrika." But Clara stepped forward, flashing her badge. "Detective Clara Evans, retired. And these are the victims of an attempted murder." Ibrahim. The word murder hit the air like thunder. Ibrahim. Vanessa tried to back away, but Samuel's voice boomed across the pews. "Kibri, don't move." His calm was terrifying. Controlled. Abro. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small recorder. Pressing play. Vanessa's own voice filled the church. "Abro, once it's finalized, we'll leave the country." Matthew's hesitant, but I'll convince him. He'll do whatever I say. A breathy audience erupted. Gasps, murmurs, even a scream from someone near the back. Matthew staggered backward, eyes darting between us and her. Brka, Vanessa. Vanessa. What is that? What did you do? Whitebrr, she turned on him. Bunny. Pan on him, panicked. Don't you dare! You were part of this too! He said. He shook his head violently. You said it was just for insurance. You said they'd be fine. She brr. I took a step forward. My voice was steady, quiet, heart-breakingly calm. Ibreka! Do we look fine, Matthew? His lips trembled. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she'd... Vanessa cut him off with a sharp hiss. You're pathet. Icy, Abrer. The cameras caught everything. The reporters who'd come to cover a quiet memorial now had the story of their lives. Betrayal, deceit, survival. Police arrived within minutes. Hebraki Clara handed over the evidence, the insurance claims, the false identities, the recordings. As they led Vanessa out in handcuffs, she turned to me, her face twisted in fury. Brie, you think this makes you saints? He wanted it too? Mepai! I met her gaze without flinching. Maybe. But I forgave him a moment I saw fear in his eyes. She spat something under her breath as they pushed her outside. Ebru. When she was gone, the church fell silent again. Matthew sat slumped at the altar steps, his hands covering his face. He didn't look up when the officers surrounded him. Son, I whispered, walking closer. Walking closer. Brr. He lifted his head slowly. Mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop her. Tears blurred my vision. You could have told us. Bieber, I thought you'd hate me. Bieber, I already forgave you, I said softly, but forgiveness doesn't. To erase what's been done. He looked broken, lost, the boy I once knew, swallowed by the man he'd become. When the officers took him too, he didn't resist, just whispered, I'm sorry, over and over until his voice cracked. Outside, the sky had turned gray, heavy with unshed rain. Hebrew reporters swarmed us, microphones flashing, questions flying. How did you survive? Abrer, why did your son do it? Abri, what happens now? Hebrew, Samuel put his arm around me, shielding me gently. I didn't answer any of them. Eber, because at that moment all I could think of was how fragile love can become when poisoned by greed, and how sometimes even a mother's forgiveness can't bring back what was lost. Not fully. That night, back at Clara's home, I stood by the window watching the rain. Eberfree, the world, now knew the truth, but my heart felt hollow. They'll both face justice, Clara said softly behind me. The system will handle the rest. Braulight nodded. Justice isn't what hurts, it's the silence afterward. Eberg Samuel came up beside me, taking my hand. We'll heal, he murmured. Not today, but we will. Eberki, and for the first time in weeks I believed him, because even after falling, even after betrayal, we'd risen again. Eber, not as ghosts, but as survivors. The days that followed felt like walking through fog, everything muffled, unreal. Reporters camped outside Clara's small countryside house for nearly a week. We didn't answer the door. Clara handled what she could, but she knew, as we did, that no amount of interviews could tell the real story, not the way it lived inside us. Quiet, aching, unfinished. Samuel and I spent most mornings sitting by the kitchen window, staring at the hills that stretched beyond the glass, the same hills where everything ended, and somehow began again. He'd hold my hand in silence, and sometimes we'd just breathe together, like two people learning what air meant all over again. When the police confirmed the full extent of Vanessa's plan, it was worse than we'd thought. Abruch fraud, premeditated murder, fake insurance policies, a plan to stage our accident weeks before the trip. Abrahi and our son? He confessed to helping her access our bank accounts, signing the travel papers, and turning off our phones before the hike. He claimed he thought it was only for money, that Vanessa told him she'd found a legal loophole. The prosecutors called it partial complicity. Abra, I called it heartbreak. When we attended the first hearing, I almost didn't recognize him. Matthew sat there in his orange jumpsuit, pale and thin, his once confident shoulders hunched, his eyes dull and glassy. He didn't look like my boy. But then again, I didn't look like his mother anymore either. Dear Burke, during recess, I asked to see him privately. The guard hesitated, but eventually led us to a small visiting room. When he walked in, his eyes filled instantly. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. Burke. I stood there, unsure how to move. For a second I wanted to run, to leave before my heart cracked open again. But Samuel placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. So I sat down. Matthew lowered himself across from me, his wrists still cuffed. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quietly. I needed you to know I didn't want you to die." I swallowed hard. "Why, son? Why didn't you stop it?" His jaw trembled. "Because I was weak. I thought she loved me. I thought if I helped her, she'd stay." That was the thing about love. It makes fools of the kindest souls and monsters of the desperate. I nodded slowly, blinking back tears. "And now?" He met my eyes for the first time in months. "Now I see why, and I hate it." There was a long silence, only the hum of the fluorescent light between us. I reached across the table, my fingers brushing his cuffed hands. "Burke, you were lost, Matthew. But I believe that doesn't have to be forever." He looked up sharply, disbelief softening into a childlike sorrow. You still believe in me?" "Belief doesn't mean forgetting," I said softly. "It means hoping that Sameda, you'll find the part of yourself you buried." His tears came fast then, real, guttural sobs that shook his shoulders, and I let him cry. I let him grieve. Because sometimes the punishment isn't the prison, it's living with the truth of what you've done. When I left that room, I didn't look back, not out of anger, but because I finally understood. Forgiveness doesn't mean returning to what was. It means releasing what never will be again. Weeks turned into months. Vanessa's trial drew national attention. She was found guilty on all counts, 25 years to life. Matthew received 8 years for aiding and abetting. The judge acknowledged his cooperation and remorse. The day the sentence was announced, Samuel squeezed my hand. "It's over," he whispered. But I knew better." It wasn't over. It had only shifted from survival to healing. We sold our old home. Too many memories clung to those walls. The echo of laughter, the warmth of birthdays, the silence that followed betrayal. Instead, we moved closer to the coast, where the air smelled like salt and possibility. Samuel started gardening again. I began writing letters, not to send, just to write, to Matthew, to Vanessa, to the woman I was before that fall. One morning, as I watered the plants by the porch, I found Samuel sitting quietly, holding a small wooden frame. Inside, it was a picture of the three of us, from a camping trip years ago. Matthew was maybe 16, grinning, mud smeared on his cheek. "I keep looking at this," Samuel said, his voice low. "Trying to remember the boy, not the man." I sat beside him, resting my head on his shoulder. "Maybe we don't have to separate them," I whispered. "Maybe both are part of him, the one who fell and the one who can rise again." He sighed, a soft, tired sound. "Do you think he'll ever forgive himself?" I watched the ocean for a long time before answering, only when he believes he's still worth forgiving. Months later, a letter arrived. The handwriting was shaky but family. R. Debrche. Dear Mom and Dad, Abrahi, I dream about the cliff sometimes. Not the fall, the moment before. Debrche, I wish I'd said no. I wish I'd grabbed your hands and pulled you back instead of letting her push. Abrahi, I can't undo it. But I'm learning. There's a counselor here who says forgiveness is like breathing underwater. It hurts at first, but one day you stop fighting it. Thank you for not giving up on me. Abrahi, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that. Berkri love. Hebrahi Matthew. I pressed the letter to my chest at Kaiba. Sometimes, redemption doesn't look like a happy ending. It looks like an honest beginning. And in that moment, for the first time since the fall, I felt something small but steady bloom inside me. Peace. That night, Samuel and I walked along the shore. Abrahi, the moon hung low, gentle waves brushing against our feet. He turned to me and said softly, "We almost died, but maybe that was how we came back to life." Sigh. I smiled through my tears. My tears. Maybe love isn't about never. Love isn't about never falling, Sam. Maybe it's about who reaches out their hand when you do. He nodded, his thumb tracing the edge of my palm. And maybe, he whispered, forgiveness is just another word for surviving. You know, people often ask me if I ever found it in my heart to forgive my son, and I tell them, forgiveness isn't something that happens all at once. It's not a grand moment with music swelling in the background. Abrahi. It's quieter than that. It's the sound of a mother opening her eyes each morning and choosing not to hate the boy she raised, even when her heart still aches from what he did. It's the decision to keep a picture of him on the wall, even when it hurts to look. It's sitting by the window and whispering his name in prayer instead of cursing it. Hebraica forgiveness isn't an act of mercy. It's an act of survival. Abrahi. After everything, life didn't magically fix itself. There were still nights when I woke up trembling, hearing the echo of the cliff wind in my dreams. There were mornings when the smell of coffee brought tears to my eyes because it reminded me of our kitchen, the one that used to feel like home. But healing has its own rhythm. Abrahi, it doesn't rush. Abrahi, it waits until you're ready to see beauty in the broken things. And slowly, I began to notice small miracles again. The way the sunlight slid through the curtains, the warmth of Samuel's laughter as he teased the seagulls, the letters that came from Matthew every month without fail. Each letter was a step, not backward, not forward, just a step toward truth. In one of his letters he wrote, Abrahi, Mom, I've been helping other inmates learn to read. There's this one man. He said I remind him of his son. I guess life finds strange ways to teach us. Abrahi, with that line, it stayed with me. Sometimes God doesn't punish us, he redirects us. Abrahi, and maybe that was Matthew's second chance, not to erase what he'd done, but to become someone better because of it. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch when a young woman from the neighborhood stopped. Bye. She had tears in her eyes and said, Abrahi, ma'am, I watched your story on the news. I just wanted to say it gave me hope. My brother hurt us badly, and I thought I'd never forgive him. But then I saw how you spoke about your son, and I realized maybe forgiveness doesn't make them right. Maybe it just sets us free. Kibror, and that right there, that moment, I realized something. Ibror, our pain doesn't end with us. If we share it honestly, it can light the way for someone else. Samuel always says that we were given a second life the day we didn't die on that mountain. Eber, and he's right. But I think the real miracle wasn't surviving the fall. Abrahi, it was surviving what came after. Shibri, the betrayal. Thebre, the grief. Shibru, the silence. The decision to keep loving in a world that had tried to take that love away. Ibersha, because love, real love, isn't soft or easy. It's fierce. It's stubborn. Eps Taburi. It's the kind that looks pain in the eye and says, Abrahi, you don't get to win. Abrahi years have passed now. The garden outside our new home has grown. Why? LD. Samuel says it's because I overwater the flowers. I say it's because love grows wherever it's given a chance. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit by the ocean and write in my journal. Not about the fall or the trial or the past, but about the small joys of today. The sound of the waves, the kindness of strangers, the letters from my son that no longer carry guilt, but hope. He's up for early release next year, and though the world may never fully forgive him, I already have. Because forgiveness isn't about changing the past, it's about changing what the past does to you. If you're listening to me right now, and if your heart is heavy with something someone did to you, you don't have to forget. You don't have to make it okay. You just have to letting it steal your peace. Pain doesn't disappear when you forgive. It simply stops controlling the story. And that's when healing begins. Brett night on the mountain, when I thought my life was ending, I remember looking at the stars thinking, so this is how it ends. But I was wrong. That was how it began, because life has a funny weighing us, right before it shows us what we're made of. I lost almost everything that day. My safety, my home, my faith in my own child. But I also found something stronger. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone's apology. The kind of love that survives even the sharpest fall. As the camera fades, I'd like to leave you with the words I whisper to myself every morning. We can't control who hurts us, but we can choose how to live after the hurt. And me, I choose to live softly. To love again, to forgive, not because I deserve. This is not a story about betrayal. It's a story about grace, about a mother who fell and still found the strength to stand again.